So I'm in the wonderful area of Torridon, and I've come down here this morning to the edge of Loch Clair. This is quite a popular spot, I think, for photography. This is an image I've seen a few times in various sort of publications and online. But it's a fantastic composition. You've got the wonderful Liathach, I think is how you pronounce it, behind me, which is a munro, and it's absolutely gorgeous. We've been in Torridon. We actually arrived here the night before last night. We arrived quite late. And yesterday was our only full day in Torridon. Today we've got to head up further north. We're heading up to the north coast and Durness. So yesterday was really our only full day here. Unfortunately yesterday the weather was very, very wet and windy. And we had actually hoped to climb Liathach whilst we were here, but of course I think the weather just, it was completely doused in cloud yesterday, and it just wouldn't have been worth the effort of lugging ourselves up that mountain, so unfortunately we didn't make it up there. But what I did do was I came down to this spot because I knew the forecast for this morning would be quite good. And it's much clearer this morning. We've got some nice clouds over there. This morning the sun's actually going to be rising over behind where the camera is now. So I'm hoping that as it comes up in probably about 10-15 minutes or so, I'm hoping it's going to shed some nice light onto the mountain itself and maybe catch some of these clouds which are still hanging around up there. But conditions are pretty much perfect, I would say. So I'm really looking forward to doing some photography down here this morning. It's going to be quite rushed because we've got to check out of our accommodation by 10 o'clock. So I'm not going to be able to explore and do too many compositions down here. But the only sort of snag really is yesterday when I came down here in the rain to scout out the area, what's great about this particular spot is there's normally lots of grasses poking out the water. And yesterday when I came down there were a huge amount of these yellowy orange grasses sticking out the water, and I've seen some really nice long exposure shots where there's a little bit of a breeze blowing those grasses. And that's kind of what I was hoping to get this morning. But when I came down this morning, obviously we had a huge amount of rain yesterday and the water level has really risen. So most of those grasses are now well underwater. There's still a few poking out. And whilst the composition's probably not quite as good as I'd hoped with those grasses in the foreground, there's still some good opportunity here. This morning I've decided to opt for a 6-stop filter. It's really calm. We also have a slight bit of mist rising up off the water, which I'm hoping will make it into the image. But I've gone for a 6-stop filter there's a very slight ripple on the water, and that 6-stop filter should be enough just to blur that out a little bit. But hopefully I'll be able to include some grasses. The trick I'm finding with trying to compose is because rather than having a sort of vast blanket of grass right across the water, which is what I was hoping for, because the water's risen, we've kind of just got these small little clumps of what were just the tallest grasses still emerging from the top of the water. So it's just a case of trying to find an aesthetic little clump of grass which sort of sits nicely in the composition. There's a nice reflection of the mountain which I'm hoping will work well in the image, but I don't want that to be too disturbed by these grasses, so I'm just trying to work out where the best spot is to set up the camera. I've still got a few minutes before the light's going to become really good, so yeah, I might take a shot here. There's also a little bit slightly further along which might work as well. I've just been having a little bit of a walk around, and I think there's a few opportunities, so fingers crossed we'll get some nice images this morning. Wow, this is just absolutely perfect. I took a first couple of shots before the sun was getting too high and there was much colour in the sky, but I had the camera a little bit lower. But actually I've just raised that camera up slightly now because I don't want these rushes, these reeds, to be obscuring the reflection of the mountain. And we've got the mist rising up off the water, and those clouds have turned a beautiful pink, just like I'd hoped they would. So, wow, absolutely stunning. It's f11, 20-second exposure with the 6-stop filter, and it's just beautiful here. It's absolutely stunning. So I've just moved the camera along to the right slightly, and dropped it down a little bit more, and I think that this also works quite nicely from this angle. But my word, the sun is coming up, it's lighting up Liathach. It's suddenly become just a little bit more hazy. There's a bit more of a ripple on the water now than there was a second ago. But there seems to be more mist rising up, and it's just gorgeous light. This place is stunning. I've always held that Scotland's, well, it feels like home to me, and it's one of the most wonderful places in the world. We're so lucky to have this place here in the UK, I think, and it genuinely does stack up there with some of the most amazing locations around the globe. And this morning it's showing me why, or well, it's justifying that opinion of mine, I think. For this image we've got a little bit of foam here in the foreground, and with the longer exposures of 20-30 seconds we get a bit of movement in that foam, which I think is working quite nicely. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about is obviously with the longer exposure the clouds are becoming quite blurred as well. So I've also taken a couple of shots without the 6-stop filter, because sometimes I like just to have a bit more definition in the clouds, and I think as long as it still works for the foreground, I think those images work okay as well. And I usually bracket those shots as well, just so that I can make sure I can get, when I do the post-processing later on, it's just so I can make sure I can get the detail out of those clouds. But it's really starting to brighten up now. That mountain has come alive. It's absolutely gorgeous. Well, what a fantastic morning I've had down by the shores of Loch Clair. This location is absolutely beautiful, and conditions this morning were perfect, so I've really enjoyed it. I think I've got some nice images. I hope you've enjoyed this video too.
So I also got up early this morning in order to do some landscape photography. I don't know if Sam mentioned in his little pieces to camera that I was not in fact with him this morning. Reason being that I'd found somewhere that I wanted to photograph, and that was from doing a little scouting trip yesterday afternoon looking for otters, which I didn't find. But the landscape I was in was just utterly inspiring. I mean, that's saying something, because the weather yesterday afternoon was awful. It was rain and thick clouds and wind to boot, so yeah, horrible weather, but the landscape was just beautiful. So I got up early. It's actually the first time I've gotten up early on this trip in order to do landscape photography. So yeah, it was a good day to have done it. I'm glad I did, because it was just a beautiful location and a beautiful dawn. The camera and the lens that I was using was different to normal, because Lumix have lent us very kindly. They've lent us the S1R and a couple of lenses. So I was using the 70 to 200 mm lens, and I found that is definitely my comfort zone in terms of landscape photography. If I am going to do landscape photography, then it's going to be a slightly telephoto shot. I think I have a theory that my brain just doesn't handle wide angle. So anyway, but yes, the equipment today was brilliant. I really enjoyed using it. So, the photos. I really hope the photos reflect just what a special morning it was. It was lovely and calm and peaceful and beautiful.